What's up, everyone? It's your boy Richard Graves of Richard Graves Group. I have on today's show Mr. Jonathan Golden. He'll be on, and we're going to be discussing the events down in Uvalde, Texas, at the unfortunate shooting at that elementary school. First, before we even get into this discussion, I'm going to simply say that, I know I titled this "Thoughts and Prayers Aren't Enough" because they aren't enough. But what I am going to say is that in a real and sincere spiritual and Christian sense, I do send my prayers out to the people down in Texas that suffered this loss. And there is nothing that anyone can say that can console anyone at this time, in my opinion. And I'm not even going to say that, I pray that this never happens to anyone else. Obviously, I don't know how these people feel, and I don't ever want to know how they feel losing their children. They're going to school, doing something that we've all done growing up, and you send your kids to school and you expect them to be safe. And in this situation, somebody goes in and decides to end the futures of so many people, destroy families for whatever selfish motivation he may have had. And that's real. That's the real thing. Before we talk anything about any of the politics, that's the real life stuff. People have to go on with their lives, that they've lost their children, they've lost loved ones, they've lost family and friends to some maniac's random thoughts to make him decide to do this. And that's what we're going to say. I'm going to say all that before we get to any of the political speech in this. And I just wanted to put that out there. So without further ado, let me bring on Brother Jonathan. Jonathan, what's up, man? Good to see you, brother.
Good seeing you too, brother.
All right. I just want to say thank you for coming on the show again tonight, and let everybody know I got my little comment things open, so I'm able to, actually reply to your comments if you put stuff up, if you have things to say, if you want something to be said. I'm monitoring both our my Richard Graves Facebook page, and I'm also monitoring the YouTube page. So we'll be able to, as people talk, if we get 2 people, fine. If we get 200, fine. Whatever it is, we're going to have this discussion today. Yeah. So Jonathan, what are your initial thoughts about this situation? What comes to mind for you? What are you thinking about here?
I'll start off with saying that how I found out about it. I don't watch the news. I never do. Whether you unfortunately or fortunately, Facebook is my precursor. It is my my news outlet, if you will, from the standpoint if somebody posts something, I'll say, okay, what is this? I do get alerts from certain news stations about a mass shooting. I got it, and I said, oh wow, dang, someone shot up another school. And it's unfortunate that was my reaction because it shouldn't be something so normal in our society. And that was my reaction. I was like, damn, what just happened now? And then I delved more into it. And then I started looking once I saw there was something out there. And I was like, here we go again. And I said to myself, okay, it's Tuesday. What's happening Tuesday in Texas? And for me, it's hard for me not to make those connections, not to say that those that had anything to do with it, but I have to make those connections because it's primary elections in Texas, all over a few states. And so it's unfortunately our freedom to bear arms is deadly, has become deadly for a lot of people. Because we have what's called a human condition of people who are sick. and which really it becomes convoluted because you go deep into um, our, our our unwillingness to tackle and deal with particularly mass shooters who are male in men's mental health. And what are we doing about that? And the first thing I thought I'll say, here we go. We're gonna have the scream from the people for our government to institute more gun laws. And without question, some of those are just common sense that it should be instituted. To be honest with you, I don't know how you can get a gun without a background check, but I have to have any licensure I've ever had, they've done a background check. And I'm talking about for real estate appraisal, anything. I've had a background check, and that's
Mhm.
common sense to me to do background checks. And I don't know why anyone would not agree with that. Um, but it's unfortunate to me because the first thing when things happen, oh, gun control, blah blah blah, and I understand people's reaction to that, and it's a logical conclusion, but not fully thought out from the standpoint. Okay, so we ban AR-15s or 17s or whatever the hell teen it is. Does that stop mass shootings? The answer is no. It's not going to stop it. Um,
You
but
know,
go ahead.
I'm gonna have to interject. So here's the thing. Um, when I go if I go to buy a gun, I can go to the store. I got a FOIA card. Go buy a gun right now. Right. Let's say I got pissed off at someone, decided, hey man, I need a Kalashnikov, or I need
Mhm.
an AR-15, or I need another Glock. You know, and I can go get one right now. Now, same extent, I just bought some Sudafed about 4 days ago. It was for my son. Now, if I decided I need some more Sudafed for me, and I go to the store and I show my driver's license, which is required for me to get it,
Yep.
I ain't getting no Sudafed.
And you ain't getting none.
So, if we have more control over Sudafed than we do over weapons, there's a problem in our country.
It is. Yeah.
And let me say this much: um, the reality is this is the cycle of these things. We've been seeing mass shootings all over, this that have since I remember the first Columbine one was the first one I was really made aware of. Okay, so you got these type of events. I take that back. When I was a kid, there was a mass shooting at McDonald's. I forgot. Maybe I was like 9 years old or something. But at the end of the day, what you have is people. Um, you have these mass shootings, and then we have thoughts and prayers that amount to nothing.
Hmm.
We have the left railing about gun control and saying things like, well, the Republicans care about, unborn babies, but not lives out of the womb. Those asinine arguments, because again, I think that tries to make equivalences where nuance needs to be spoken about. And then you have the nut jobs on the right who want to start immediately talking about their right to bear arms, and that it shouldn't be infringed. That absurdity, and it's obscene in these situations. I've come to find that most people who talk about the right to bear arms do not understand the Second Amendment at all. All right, and and neither do the people who want to knee jerk. Nobody can have a weapon. I think that what needs to happen is, first we need to see what actually happened. What happened? Where did this guy have legal guns? Did he have illegal guns?
Hmm.
Where did he buy them from?
Yeah.
Right? Were there any mental health issues that he had that were not dealt with? Things of this nature, so we can see what exactly are we missing. Because if we keep doing what we do, having the absurd conversation to the absurd left and the absurd right, and we don't talk about what is happening, how is this happening, what do we really need to do, not some knee jerk emotional response, but an actual, what do we need to do in order to try to prevent this? And I think there's a few common sense things we'd be able to determine if we actually looked at it that wouldn't infringe on the guy who lives in South Dakota's right to have his rifle in his car when he decides to go hunting or whatever he does. we could also deal with some of these greater gun issues that we have. So I think that we've been having this conversation perched in two absurd positions. And I think that we really need to actually have a real conversation. That's the problem, not just with this issue, but any issue I've come to find in American society really comes down to us having a real discussion, and nobody's having that. And I find that extremely problematic, because we keep, I mean, this has happened. It's always the same thing. We're going to have lawyers and constitutional lawyers from the left and the right talking about the Second Amendment and all what it really means. And none of them are actually having a real discussion either, because most of the time when I've seen that discussion, it has been ridiculous. It has been something that I find laughable as a public policy person, as a historian who understands the Constitution. By no means am I a constitutional scholar, but I do understand the basic premise of its writing. I do understand how we got to it. I do understand the Federalist Papers and Anti-Federalist Papers. I understand what the founders' intent was, regardless of what Justice Alito had wished to try to skew the argument. Because let's be real, this doesn't really become a problem. These mass shootings don't really become a problem until we start having this willy-nilly idea that our gun rights are unlimited. I mean, that's an absurd presupposition right there, because no right is unlimited. No right that you have is unlimited. All right. In fact, looking at the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia. Well, well-regulated means that there are rules. And in the case of a constitution, we talk about rules, we're talking about laws. All right. So a well-regulated, meaning there's rules to this. It's not just you just run around with a gun and you're open carrying. No. Now, the point of that well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Now, I know the absurd lunatic morons, and I'm sorry if your feelings are hurt that these people who are watching are any of this group of morons who believes that the security of a free state means prepared to fight your own government that you elect every 4 years, because that's not what that's about. All right. At the time, let's look at it in some historical context. What was going on at that time? What was the world like? You have a new republic that still has to defend itself from the British and other empires, has to defend itself from Native Americans and their nations. All right. So this wasn't to overthrow the U.S. government. And then it said the right, which is a right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. Now, infringed does not mean not ruled, because obviously in this particular sentence, the very first weight of it is regulated. So we can utilize our logic, our syntactical logic, to understand that infringe does not mean not regulated. So that's absurd when people say that. But again, I know most people don't think about it as deeply, and most people want to gravitate to interpreting this amendment by what works for them or what works for their politic. And honestly, I think all the people rambling about, oh my God, I bet you today a whole bunch of gun sales happen and a whole bunch of weapon sales happen because people now freaked out. Oh my God, they're going to come for my guns. Like they said, Obama's going to take their guns and they're running. And I bet you, if someone does a survey, I bet you gun sales went up today. All right. Because people fearing that somebody's going to stop them from having their guns. And honestly speaking, outside of the people who are come from areas where guns are normal, if you go to certain parts of the Southwest or the South, or even up in Upper Peninsula, Michigan, Upper Wisconsin, Indiana, people have guns and they don't have the level of gun crime that we would have like in a city like Chicago or Baltimore or New York or DC. All right. So the issue is not the gun. The issue is there is supposed to be some regulation. So the regulation comes down to figuring out what happened. What really happened? How did this guy get this gun? And then we have to have real talk about HIPAA. The HIPAA rights to keep all our medical records so super secret, supposedly. When you have a person with a mental health issue, all right, no, you shouldn't be able to get a gun. Now, of course, you got the yokels that want to complain. Well, then they'll just declare somebody has a mental health issue so they take your gun away from you. Now, if we have a real talk about healthcare in this country and how we are managing the mentally ill or how we manage mental health, let alone rest of health, but we don't want to have those real discussions. We want to just sit here and posture have these constitutional discussions, and everybody's going to forget about this like they forgot about all the other ones. And then we'll wait for the next one. Rinse and repeat. Let's start going with the whole, hey, man, oh my God, thoughts and prayers from politicians. And it's another absurd argument about two positions that are really not the point. It's not about taking everybody's gun. All right. And it's not about, you know, um, everybody having a gun. We have to talk about this in a actual public policy way as a nation, not as people on the left and the right, not as conservatives and liberals, not as black and white people, not as northerners and southerners, or not as Cub fans and freaking Sox fans. Let's have this discussion as Americans, saying we have a problem that we need to address. That's all I'm saying.
All that what you said is good, Rich, but it borders on a little idealism. There's the North and the South. There's two different worlds, and as I was saying, there's two different worlds, two different cultures, and I was saying before we got on that there's been 212 212 mass shootings. The source is gunviolencearchive.org. Now that's qualified. Now you talking about 3 or more people injured or killed, and this one has had the most people killed this year so far. So that's probably why we're hearing about this one. But
How are they quantifying?
Yeah. So they go by injured and killed, and 3 or more. Then it doesn't delineate between school and not school.
So I guess the shooting last week in Chicago, where the BDs or GDs started shooting at, some other BDs or GDs, however it was, or Lords or Stones, whatever they were, as they shot at each other.
Yep.
When three people got killed, they count that as a mass shooting.
That is on here.
All right. Now, don't you think?
Qualified? Yeah.
But don't you think realistically that type of shooting is very different in motivation? I mean, all crimes are qualified by motive.
Yeah, I completely agree. Right. But my point is that the whole idea of multiple people being shot is a normality. Is normal for us. It's unfortunate. Okay. 212.
But that's a pathology. Then that means it needs to be dealt with.
Exactly.
And I hear what you're saying in regard to the North and the South being two different cultures. However, we're still one country. They tried the two-country approach, that didn't work out for them. So let's deal with reality. All right. Reality is that as a nation, we have had insurmountable problems in the past that we've had to come together to solve. Sometimes it was easier than others. For example, the problem with slavery. We went to solve that problem, and of course, we ended up with a situation where those two different cultures almost became two different countries. Well, it didn't work out that way. So the civil rights movement, it didn't go quite as far. It didn't go where somebody's breaking off. But again, the conversation has to be had, a realistic conversation. I'm not saying anything idealistic. I'm simply saying that there has to be a realistic conversation. And this is not just for this issue. I don't care if it's abortion rights. I don't care if it's how we deal with healthcare, what we're going to do. Gas is at $5 a gallon, all right, or more, depending on where you're at. That is a conversation that we're going to have. It's a tough conversation in energy policy. So what I'm suggesting is simply this, that we have to stop having discussions in the peripheral. Or if we do, this problem is still going to be solved, because there is a maximum density to all things, to which a point where something has to be dealt with. Mm-hmm. So when we get to that point, we can do it the violent way like we did during the Civil War. We could do it the way that our founders intended us to do in our different cultures, in our different colonies that became states, that became regions. That's what we hire. That's what we elect people for, and pay them to go to Washington, D.C. to work out the policy instead of posturing. The problem, can I be frank?
Be frank.
Everything you said is actually not the point. The reason why this is not a discussion is because you have a gun lobby that pays extremely large sums of money to politicians to go the way they want them to go. Because realistically speaking, how many guns could you really sell in a year? Think about this. If you sell guns to the military, you sell guns to law enforcement, military, they might switch them out every 5 years or so. All right. You're only going to sell so many guns or bullets unless there's a war. So if there's no war, you're not going to sell as many bullets. Now, if you put a fear out there, if I put a fear out there, somebody's going to take your guns. You're going to sell more guns. If I put another fear out there, the race war is waiting to happen. Black Lives Matter is coming to your home. More bullets are going to get sold. All right. So again, the pink elephant in the room, it always comes down to what Jesus says, the love of money, and those with it and the power are pressing an agenda to further their money.
Now you're going where I'm going, where I was eventually going. It's like I told you on the last show. The powers that be on and respect, and I'm using powers that be very strategically and very PC.
Mm-hmm.
Two things. You take their money or violence.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing that's ever been respected, to get the needle to move. It's the only thing. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you talk about the dam bursting, if you will, I just put it a different way, it has to be a big money loss or there has to be violence. And so moving forward, here's where I'm gonna be a little bit different in how I attack this. And everything you said is right. There's no disagreement. However, I guess I don't have the faith anymore that this is a problem that we can leave up to our government to solve. Here's why.
Well,
here's why.
Real quick before you go there. No, let me let you finish. I apologize. Go ahead.
And here's why. We could not leave the government to make the decision to give Black people the right to vote. We had to start a grassroots movement, Montgomery bus boycotts that affected money. And when that person did that, they had to pay attention when he affected the money. And so what I'm espousing is that the people have to have movements and take control of their own local neighborhoods. The government is too infiltrated with, as you said, lobbying. Steve Kerr said it magnificently.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to lose power, so you're not going to do the right thing. And you're going to have identity politics. You're going to make a decision based on your party, not the people you represent.
Well,
I don't know that we're ever going to get away from that.
Well, I think we do get away from that when we deal with this primary system. All right. Because here's the thing. The primary system as it is, think about this. We have two private corporations, the Democratic Party and Republican Party, that over the last 60, 70 years have rent-seeked themselves.
Hold on. Hold on. You just zoomed past that as if everybody knows what you just said.
Okay, everyone who, for the people in the back of the audience.
Thank you.
Here it is.
You
have two private corporations.
Say that one more time, just for me. Just please.
Private corporations, however they 501c3 or whatever they are, they're still not public entities. The Democrat and Republican parties are not. Let me break this down. The Democrat and Republican parties have rent-seeked themselves to become part of the very foundation and structure of government. That is a problem, meaning that the primaries that we have are funded by taxpayers, yet you can only vote in one of them. All right. So that's the equivalent of me and Jonathan having two groups. Okay. And two groups that are vying for power. Right. And me and Jonathan say, hey, man, we're going to start these parties. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it so instead of me and you paying for our own stuff and have our own little primaries, we're going to have the people pay for our primaries. All right. So it becomes a taxpayer funded situation. To top that off, what makes it even worse is that after they fund it, we still controls the lever of government, so to the point where there's no way, damn near impossible for an independent person to win. We rent seek that the rules to how one has to register to run all those things. We rent seek it so tightly that a person has to be able to have some degree of wealth to even be able to get himself in the game. So as long as we have that, the parties themselves are beholden to other entities, but the parties, when you have this rent seek situation, and you have it so that they control levels of government, it caters to the extremities on both of those sides. It doesn't cater to the means of people who can have a discussion. It caters to the nut jobs because it is all about pushing the agenda of the party, the base of those parties, which can go radical. All right. And then at that, which it has, we were seeing the fruit of that. So what I'm saying is, and then like I said, I don't want to go into that because that's a whole discussion by itself about why we need to change the primary system so that parties can organically live, grow, and die. Like when the Whigs died and the Republicans came out of it, that was an organic process. I dare I say that I don't think either the Democratic or Republican Party would exist in the current forms they're in if we had let them organically grow, if they weren't propped up and being supported by taxpayer funds, you know. So
That being said, here we are again. We go through this every year. A mass shooting. Oh, gun control. Okay.
or no gun control, no, take my guns from my cold day hand. We go from those two extremes because let's not let the right off the hook.
Yeah.
Each side goes to these absurd extremes because then they don't really have to talk about what's really happening. They don't have to talk about those 212 shootings. They don't have to talk about what is happening. All right, because there is a national policy that has to be set, but there are local policies. And let me give you an example of this. All right, let's take gang violence. Gang violence isn't new. You seen the movie Tombstone?
Mm-hmm.
All right, you saw them Pyrus that Wyatt Earp. If I call them Pyrus because they were called the Red Rag Gang. All right, so they Pyrus, they Bloods, right? And they out west, so let's just call it what it is.
Right.
They were gang banging. All right. Well, so Wyatt Earp had to deal with that group of guys. All right. Now, if you notice in those towns out west, there were ordinances. You saw Unforgiven. When going to Big Whiskey, you got to surrender your firearms. People knew they had to let the firearms go when they went into town. There were rules. There were local rules that govern, and nobody talked about Second Amendment rights because this Second Amendment argument is a fiction that was created by Justice Alito. The current argument that we're having that we claim is originalist, it isn't originalist. It is something that was created within the last 40 years. Because prior to that, you didn't have this thing. You didn't have discussions when people controlled who had weapons, who can bring them, where you could take your gun. There was no outcry. It was just known, But now everybody wants to act like this is brand new. I can't take my gun in the mall. I can't take my gun in the hospital. Like it's something. And it's just sad that the discussion has devolved to such a manner to now that we have this absurdity where people are arguing that there should be no limits whatsoever on what they can do and what they can buy or where they can carry a weapon. And then you have people on the other end that just want to say, well, guns, nobody should be able to get a gun, and you can't have a conversation about policy in those two extremes. And those two extremes are being pushed because of how the party system is. That's why we're dealing with extreme politics in every case. You can pick any topic that we can talk about, and when we really get down to the root of it, it's going to come down to the absurdities and the extremes we've allowed these parties to go to, and the fact that they're so ingrained in our government. They have literally, you and I, the taxpayer, have paid them to use their power to submit themselves within government. It is ridiculous. That we've allowed this to happen. They've submitted, they are parts of government now. They are part of the foundation of our government system. And that should be disturbing to everyone. The fact it isn't, I find fascinating. But
so when you grow up and you don't have poli-sci, or if you had poli-sci and you slept through it, or you were high through it, or you don't remember a damn thing about it, you don't come to that realization. Or you don't have these kinds of discussions. My mother started talking to me about these things early. So I had an interest in when I went to social studies or poli-sci in college to understand how is it really supposed to work? And so you don't have, and so when you grow up and you live in a certain area and that's a Democratic area or a Republican area, that you grow up with that being the foundation of your environment. You don't know any better until you
Mhm.
maybe go to college and you see the other people have vastly different views and come from different walks of life, and so it takes a lot of intestinal fortitude to be corrected on your frame of thought that you've grown up with your entire life. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
that's the religiosity of politics. I mean, look at it this way, bro. People claim that there should be a separation between church and state. Well, I get it. You know that the establishment clauses in the Constitution were predicated so that the government wouldn't interfere in church affairs for more than anything else, really.
mhm,
Because in England and Europe, they had worked it out from through the through the through the Middle Ages, Renaissance, and Enlightenment. They pretty much worked that out by the time we get to us. So, and especially after the French Revolution. But here's my thing: well, church and state are separate. Politics is religion. All right, you have the religion of the left and the religion of the right. You have the religion of liberalism. You have religion of conservatism. All right, what I mean by it being a religion is people have in their mind these ideas that I'm a liberal, so I think like this. They have a dogma.
mhm.
I'm a conservative. I think like this. I have a dogma. All right, and anything outside of that is blasphemy. That's religion, my friend. I don't care if they're atheists, agnostics, Christians, Muslims, whatever they call themselves. The religion is the politic. All right. The God of that religion is their ideology. They have their sacred cows. They have their things that are untouchable. I can list a group of them on the left and the right, but I'm not going to do that right now. We'll have that discussion later. But I am going to say that the religious part of it, if your politics is religious to you, then you have a problem. Because at the end of the day, politics and government is something where citizens of different ideas are able to sit down and talk to figure out what's best for the community. Until those discussions can be had as a city, a county, a state, or a country, we're going to keep having these ridiculous outcomes. And that's the reality of the situation. You know, you have to be able to have these discussions so that we know what we're talking about. Because a gun control issue in Chicago is a very different discussion than one in Texas.
Yeah.
All right. And also, real talk, we have to talk about the our HIPAA laws that we have and
Mhm.
who's really benefiting from them being what they are. And those, you guys know the HIPAA law. You know what that is, right,
Yeah,
bro?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I worked at Blue Cross and Blue Shield when it first came out.
Oh, yeah. So you are the HIPAA privacy rule. What is that? The HIPAA privacy rule um, protects health information for individuals, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to see what the actually HIPAA stands for, but of course, Google isn't going to give me. Oh, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996. I had to do. I think I'll do a study on that and see exactly who benefits from it being what it is. Besides, people do things when they rent seek legislation. Here's the thing: someone comes up with a great idea. Hey, we need a privacy for people's medical rights, right? Then somebody realizes how they can angle that for something they really want to do. So they push that, but the real thing is behind it, and you're thinking I'm getting this great benefit, but there's something else behind it.
Yeah, I
For
hear you.
example,
Yeah.
like the home what's that the you know what I'm talking about when they said that if they were dealing with redlining. I forgot what it was called, but it was the act in Congress in order for people to, for banks to invest in the community, in order for the bank to be able to get new branches. They had to loan so much money to the community, and it seemed like a great thing to get poor
Mhm.
people homes, but ultimately it was rent seek by banks so they could create mortgage companies that were not beholden to those rules that could do
Mhm.
everything that they did the first time around was in the was it when there was the savings and loans fiasco with
Mhm.
banks back in the Reagan era, and then the next time was 2008 when we had the collapse. You know, um, so in those situations, the Community Reinvestment Act, CRA, that's it, Community
Mhm.
Reinvestment Act. So when you look up the Community Reinvestment Act, it looks like a great thing, But then you have these other parties that say, yeah, it's a great thing. How do we spend this to make as much money as possible? So you're thinking you're getting this benefit on the front end. But when reality, what you're getting is a group of banks and insurance companies and brokers figuring out a way to utilize that very thing you think to help you in order to exploit you. And that's why we need to hold our elected officials accountable to us. And honestly, I
So
don't care
how
how
do
much
we hold them accountable?
kick them out.
Yeah,
Right?
but see, by that time it's too late.
No, let's be realistic. You have a House of Representatives where people are in the House for 2 years. Every 2 years you vote them out. It was made that way. Our founders weren't stupid. All right, think about this. All right, what should happen if me and you live in a community? There should be no career politicians. It should be, okay, Rich owns a grocery store down the street. For 2 years, Rich, we want you to go do the bidding of the community in DC.
Yeah.
And I come back, and then, hey, Jonathan owns the gym down the street. He owns the gym, owns a restaurant. And now Jonathan's going to go for 2 years and do the bidding. And then we hold each other accountable. Where we messed up is when we decided that there was such a thing called a professional politician. because think about it. You can't buy and pay for somebody who goes away for 2 years and has to come back and face the people that he's dealing with.
Yeah, in his community, yeah.
Right. But if I can stay in this particular office forever, all right, and I can live in DC and have my house back here in Chicago, and I can strut around and give you fix a couple potholes, whatever I do, and I stay perpetually elected. And that's how you get in someone's pocket, because they come to you and they'll say, hey, if you don't do our bidding, we're going to put our money behind somebody else because you made a career out of something that should not be a career. Even George Washington said, okay, enough, thank you. All right, the first president of the United States said they wanted to make him president for life.
No, they wanted to make him king.
Yeah, well, that was the first discussion, but that's the old David thing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he didn't take king, nor did he take president for life. Yeah. He could have stayed president until he died. He chose not to. That's a statesman, because they were trying to put together a system where we then end up with those type of dictatorships or legacies and stuff like that. But here's what people depend on for that to happen. One, they depend on the laziness of people. I'm going to say it's the laziness of people. People like other people to think for them. You see that in government. You see that in church. That's why everybody loves their pastor and listens exactly what he says, because they don't want to think about the Bible. They don't want to read for themselves whatever pastor says. So the same thing with politics. Nobody wants to think about these issues. They're just going to listen to whatever talking head politician has to say. And, so instead of us paying attention only, not that we can't have our distractions, but instead of only being concerned in next week's episode of Love and Hip Hop, or what's going to happen to Tommy in the next season of Power, or who Kanye is sleeping with and who's Kim with, or baseball, football, all the distractions, we should take a little bit of time to actually focus on our community. All right. Our city community, our county community, our state community, and our national community. But people depend on the laziness of people not wanting to do that. All right. So either we can complain about it or we can do something about it. Just as simple. If you don't want to do anything about it, let it be what it is. Don't complain when you have these shootings and you don't have policy to actually deal with mentally ill people getting guns and going to shoot up schools, because you don't want to do what is necessary to take care of that. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm sorry. Someone just said like Kanye, so I got to laugh.
So I'm about to turn up the heat, man. There's an elephant in the room.
Go ahead, bro.
There's a big elephant in the room. Hold on just a second. I gotta get this. There's a big elephant in the room, and I'm not going to dance around the elephant. Okay. I'm not going to dance around it. I think it's something that needs to be pointed out. Look at the demographics. The demographic of the most infamous mass shooters.
Oh well, we know what that is. Come on,
No, no,
man.
no, no. We know, but bro,
White males.
and not only that, where they're at.
Yeah,
When
I
I
mean,
look at the this website, the gunviolencearchive.org, the vast majority have been Southern California, through the southern states, Indiana, and then you have the Metroplex in New York, Baltimore, Maryland, DC over there.
right.
But the vast majority of your southern states or the northern Republican state of Indiana, and they're typically Republican. These are just
Mhm,
facts. These are facts. Yet
mhm.
we have the extreme right saying, "Don't mess with our guns." Um, what do we make of this? What
Well,
I have a piece of paper here. What do I make out of this?
well,
Do I make an
let's just
airplane out of this? What do I make of this?
look at two mass shootings: Dylan Roof
Hmm.
in the church where he killed the 8 black parishioners, and then let's look at the one in Buffalo.
Yep.
Okay, and again, the targets were African American people. I think I don't know. I'm picking up an echo. No, sure, I'm not on my phone. No. Okay. So when we're looking at that, bro, um, here's the thing. I don't like acting like white nationalism is the existential threat of black people. It isn't. However, I think white nationalism is a problem in America, and it has been ever since the end of the civil rights movement. And when you read my book, when it's released, it's going to talk about white nationalism. And I'm not going to say that white nationalism is necessarily the majority of the Republican Party. I think it's nowhere. No, it's not the majority of the Republican Party. I don't think most Republicans or self-identified conservatives are white nationalists or white supremacists in that. Or a, but I will say that unfortunately, just like in Islam, most people in Islam are not Islamic fundamental terrorists. They're not. Most
Hmm.
people aren't. Most Muslims are not trying to blow up anything or kill anybody. They're trying to live their lives like everybody else. However, there is a problem with people who identify as Muslims who like to do that type of thing. And it is a problem that has to
Hmm.
be dealt with. I reject the notion. I end up blocking a guy on LinkedIn, someone who works where I work, not where I work, but for the same people I work for. And, he's from Southern Illinois. So, it's not the white nationalism has anything to do with it. People who want to minimize it. He said he was a communist, so it's not white nationalism. Look, man, Bob, it is what it is. All right. And then people want to say, well, there's black racists too. Unfortunately, or fortunately, let me make this clear. Fortunately, we don't generally have black people, young black men running into churches full of white folks and killing them, talking about a race war. That
Hmm.
doesn't happen. Now, yes, you can have black racists, you can have white racists, but again, we're just deal with reality, you know. So when you have this thing, we have to think about. Unfortunately, I do criticize the Republican Party. One of the things it's my party. I criticize. One of the things I criticize is it played pussyfoot with white nationalism ever since the end of the civil rights movement. And I think that ultimately those people, combined with some other extremists on the right, the bill became due. You kept using these people every election to get elected, and finally the bill became due.
Hmm.
And they want what they want, you know. And I think that they push the narrative to that's what I mean by the extremists on one side pushing the
Hmm.
narrative. That's part of that extremism on the right, extremism on the right, I should say. But I will also say you still have that type of racism on the left that just does not, or I should say, that type of anti-black racism on the left, being specific, general racism that
Hmm.
manifests in a very different way. There's also something you read about in fact, I'm gonna send it to you first because you're gonna have to actually interview me about it because I
Yeah.
can't interview myself. But but the thing is, what I'm saying is, yeah, you have these mass shootings in these states. There is a culture issue there. They're always going to talk about the culture issue in the hood. We know there's a culture issue in the hood, but nobody wants to talk about the culture issue that creates people like this. Now, there's going to be some people that are going to say the guy was a Latino. You know, I didn't see. I have not seen this guy's face yet. This
Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah. So, and they're gonna say, well, he's not white. He's a Latino. I'm not saying that. Well, one, I'm not. He didn't target black people. He targeted children. So
Mhm.
obviously that's a different issue. You know. However, the thing I have to say about it is, you know, excuse me, that at the end of the day, there's something about the culture in these areas that can create people like this. And again, it's not that the culture creates them. Let me back that up a bit, because I think you got these crazy type of dudes in every culture. It's just that they have more access to
Do you?
guns.
Do you?
Yes, you do. You know where I work.
Do you?
Trust me. Dude, you
That
know I work.
would go and shoot up a school.
If given the opportunity.
Do you? I'm
Do
gonna push back on that one.
you think sociopaths are they're only in one race?
No. That's not what I'm saying.
Hmm?
That's not what I'm saying.
Because a person who shoots up a school, that's now culture is the problem with the culture is they have access to the guns the way that they do. That's the culture problem.
Okay.
All right, the culture part, maybe part of the culture problem is this whole tough guy gun culture that we have, where we made guns a god to us. All right, because I mean, guns are a god. It's my God-given right. It's a gun. Remember what I said about religion of
Yeah.
politics? The religion of politics on the right is a gun. In many cases, is takes the status of deity on the right. Deity. It's a demon on the left. It's a deity on the right.
Mm-hmm.
So that might have some. The culture has something to do with it. But as far as what would make a person who would go in and just shoot a group of people, there has to be. Well, there doesn't have to be, but generally there is a motivation that is by some type of mental illness, some type of mental disease, or there's always just the other one, just evil. Some people are just evil. But and I don't know enough about this perpetrator to say either way. But I will say this: I don't think that white males are any more predisposed to um, this type of capacity than any other human being. But I think that, like when Lola's saying, one of our posters is the culture creates and enables them. I'm gonna have to agree with that because we say that about the hood all the time. We're talking about the hood, and the homies going around shooting up each other over red
Yep.
and
Yeah.
blue bandanas, or you know, pitchforks and 5 point stars, whatever, and crowns, whatever you want to call it. People killing
Yep.
each other over that. You know, that's a culture issue too.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
a
That's all.
different.
That's really all I was really getting at.
Mhm.
I don't think it's okay to say that black people tend to commit different crimes than white folks. It's just the
Well,
truth.
well, no, I think it's because of the culture, though.
That's
Because I think if you take a black
that's
person
my
and you
point.
raise them in the same type of culture, like the white
That's
boys
my
that you
point.
see that are GDs, I see
Hmm.
white GDs all the time.
Yeah.
White GDs and white Latin kings. It's where they grew up, part of the culture.
Yeah.
They're not listening to country western, and they're with the homies. So if you take a brother, we've seen them brothers that be down there. You know, if you get enough of us, there the numbers get high enough. You
Yeah.
know.
However, if you
Mhm.
took a brother and put him in, first of all, he wouldn't survive in a white nationalist arena anyway. So,
Well, let me be
that's what I'm
clear.
saying. That's a
No,
little
no,
bit
no. Let me
different.
be clear. Let me be clear. White nationals era, yeah. White supremacist era, no. Those are two different things.
I got you. No, you're
All
right.
right,
You're right. You're
because
right.
like you
You're
got
right.
white nationalism embraces black people that agree with white nationalism.
Right.
All right, they embrace you. White supremacy, now that's different.
Right.
No Negroes allowed. But white nationalism is a cultural movement of the aspects of culture being of whiteness, whatever that is defined
Understood.
by.
No argument. No
Right.
argument.
You got your Candace Owens out there. You got your.
Listen, leave Candace alone,
I
man.
can't leave her alone, man.
I know, man. I like Candace, man. Until the George Floyd thing, man, I couldn't rock with her no more after that one.
Yeah, she went too far. She goes too far
It was
quite a
too
bit.
soon, bro.
And the sad thing is, the girl does make some sense sometimes, but
Yeah,
unfortunately, she goes for the low hanging fruit too often.
yeah,
And
yeah.
unfortunately, that makes me. I intend to have a discussion with her at some point. I'm sure she ain't gonna like it. You know, I'm sure if anybody ever shows us this dude, this old man, okay, I got something for you, cuz. You know what I'm saying? But real talk, man. Um, you and I both have talked about some greater issues outside of stop arguing about, oh, no guns or guns for everybody.
Right.
We know that there's more to it than that.
Right.
We've talked about various aspects of it that need to be addressed. And if we do not address them, we're going to keep, what does it say? What's the definition of insanity, my friend? To
Doing the
continue to
same
do the
thing
same
over and
thing,
over, expecting a different result.
And we're doing the same thing this time. Oh, take all the guns away. Oh, don't take my guns. I'm keeping my guns. And then you also have my thoughts and prayers for everyone.
Right.
And then we do it all over again. And at the end of the day, some very real people have lost some very real family members, their children. This is just, it's too bad. Now, I know you brought up the primary aspect in Texas. This ain't going to change nothing in Texas, my friend. You think Texas is going to say, oh, we're going to go for gun control for, no. All right. Texas don't care.
Yeah.
Texas has had mass shootings before. Texas had police officers killed in mass shootings before. All right. You had a black man killing multiple police officers in Dallas, Texas. Gun laws didn't change. So it ain't racial. You know, if it was racial, oh my God, black. Think about this. Ronald Reagan did a racial law. When the Black Panthers were walking around open carry in California was legal, Ronald Reagan was one to push laws to make sure nobody was open carry because these Negroes is open carrying.
Now we're getting to something very interesting, my friend.
Right.
Now we get to something. But let me segue into this. And it's like I told you, you have to have a methodology of watching the news. Why are you showing me this? Why are you showing me this at this time? Why are you showing me at this date of the year? Why?
Well, I'm going to say
we've had 212 mass shootings, and you're showing me this one nationally. Did those other ones those lives not matter then? Mm-hmm. See, this is why I'm saying, Rich, it's never cut and dry. Let me say this.
I apologize, brother. Oh my God, it won't go off. Are you kidding me?
Let me say this. How many of these mass shootings have happened in the inner city?
Not many.
Schools. Why? And if they did happen, would you hear about it nationally?
I think that if there was a mass shooting, and God forbid that there is not one in New York or Chicago, I think we'd hear about it. You know,
you think so?
Especially,
I can go and look up and check and see whether there's one because they got them all.
But here's my thing, though: the mass shootings in Chicago that you can probably find. I'm familiar with, Chicago. All right, you're talking about a very different situation because that's why we have to have nuanced discussion because we can't say you can't. They're all fruit, but some are apples and some are oranges. So in Chicago, the things that have led to mass shootings here have been very different things than some whack job deciding to go to school and shoot it up. Now we had that one last week at the McDonald's. What was that about? Now let me take a look at that because you heard about this shooting we had at the McDonald's, right, in Chicago?
No.
You didn't? Well, maybe you got a point.
I don't watch the news, brother.
No, well, you heard about this one. I'm surprised you hear about that one.
Well, because I got a feed in Facebook and I got a feed from one of the national outlets, and I was like, "Ooh, okay."
Wow, hold on a second, cuz you might have a point, because I don't think this was mob related. Hold on a second. Well, let's see if it was mob related. It says 2 men are being held without bail through shooting last week outside a near north side McDonald's left 2 people dead and several others wounded.
That's considered a mass shooting.
Okay, so Jalen Sanders, 23, has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, 7 counts of attempted first-degree murder. The other one's name is Cameron Abram, 20 years old, unlawful use of firearms. Sanders was the person who shot into the crowd late. I can tell you what that was. He shot into a crowd. He wasn't shooting a crowd. Now, maybe I'm wrong. And if I am wrong, please forgive me, the family of anyone who lost anyone. All right, because you and I know that you and I know that with shootings, unfortunately, these young dudes ain't like the old gangsters. The old gangsters looking for one person, and they ain't shooting at no crowd, and they ain't shooting at no
Right.
house, and they ain't
Right.
shooting
Right.
at
Right.
nobody's
Right.
mama.
Right.
Nowadays, these dudes, they shooting. They if they see the homie it's on, they gonna start shooting, and they don't care who's there, and they gonna fire off. And you and I have both fired weapons. You know how quick it is to empty a magazine in a Glock or any other type of weapon these days.
Mhm.
So in that situation, again, I'm saying that this is not that. This ain't that, as the homies
No.
say.
No. 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 It's
That,
not.
right. So that causes that. You know, two young brothers shooting into a crowd. I'm sure there was some personal crap to that. All right. Or some mob related crap to that. Or even somebody didn't like their picture on Facebook, or these kids are emotional. They own them pills, they're emotional. So that, again, that shows the difference in the culture. That's Chicago, man
It's Detroit
shooting.
too. It's
Right,
Detroit too.
right. But down in Texas, this wasn't that. This wasn't
No.
the dude that was gangbanging. This
No.
was
No. No.
dude
No.
that was really seeking innocent victims to
Right.
slaughter.
Right.
That's a very different thing.
You're absolutely
That's a
right.
very now both are wrong. People, be clear. Let me be clear. I sound like Obama. Let me be clear. All right,
Let me be
both
clear.
are wrong and evil, and the people who did these crimes. The one guy is dead. These two guys need to be in jail for a significant part of their lives, the rest of their life, if not the rest of them. And I know, oh, we're in the mass incarceration. No, dude, you go out and you kill a couple people, you shoot 7 more, you probably ain't coming back from prison. You shouldn't. All
Right.
right. Unless, we change something scientifically where we can deprogram people from that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, I'm saying that goes to show again with the culture. Now, all I'm saying is you could get a black kid who, like, take serial killers, like the dudes, the shooters in DC. They were both black.
Oh, you talking about? Oh, okay.
Yeah, the
Well,
DC snipers. They killed a lot of people. It was the one
I'm
that
gonna
mass shooting.
leave that one alone.
They didn't kill people at
I'm gonna
once.
leave that one alone for a good reason, Richie. You ain't gonna like why I'm gonna leave it alone, but I'm gonna leave that one alone
Mm-hmm.
because there's some discrepancies in that story.
Well,
Some
man,
big discrepancies in that
we at
story.
the last 3 minutes, so we're gonna get back on this weekend. Let's pray nothing else happens that we got to talk about. Fair
Right.
enough.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say this to the people who lost people in every situation we've talked about. And again, I'm a real Christian. I know some of y'all say, "Man, I heard you cut somebody out." Yes, you did. I am a real Christian, though. I know I'm flawed. So I'm not perfect. Don't look to me for perfection, but I guarantee you, I'm always going to demonstrate the golden rules. All right, love my neighbor as I love myself. Love God, of course, first. Love my neighbor. So you're gonna see it demonstrated, and that's the demonstration I'm having for you guys now, and saying I truly feel for these families that lost people. There ain't no getting it back. I lost my dad last year to natural things, of course, but there is no. I can only. I don't even want to imagine that your child is taken from you because of some. Pardon my French. I won't use my French. I'm trying to be better, but of some person who decides that whatever going on in their life means that they have a right, or that they decide that this is what they're gonna do. They're gonna hurt other people. They got nothing to do with they stuff. Man. It's really sad. And I want to also say thank you to the border patrol agent who happened to be going by, because if they had to wait for the police to respond, all right, it would have been more people dead. He was prepared to kill more. And the border patrol agent that stopped, that was there, that went in there, he shot dude. It was over with. That's a hero. Hope he gets the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Now, as far as, because remember when I think it was Sandy Hook, where the cop was afraid to go back into school with his gun. He
Yeah.
worked there. Yeah, that's a coward. But this dude's a hero. This guy went in because I guarantee you it would have been worse.
He went
And
in guns blazing.
yeah, he went in. He popped dude, man.
Okay.
I gotta respect that. I mean,
Yeah.
I heard it. I respect that. I mean, I guess dude was part of. He happened to be one of the elite guys. One of the elite border patrol guys. The tactical guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been on a tactical team myself. And in most departments, tactical teams are excessively, or I should say, excessively trained for a reason, for that type of reason.
Mm-hmm.
And he went in and he took care of business, man, because that dude wasn't done. He didn't bring all them guns in there just to kill, unfortunately, 21 people. That's horrible. but he would have killed more, because as you know, you and I both know how quickly those guns unload. And in 2 minutes for the police to respond, that's a long time. All right.
Yeah.
That's a long time. And the last thing I'm going to say is this is why we need security in schools. I don't care how you feel about it. Like I said, I'm at the F your feelings thing on that, because I'm going to tell you somewhat. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I know in Chicago, they voted to have the CPD out of the schools.
Mm-hmm.
I understand there were some abuses done.
Yeah.
But let me give you all a solution. It's not all a none presupposition. You need security in schools because our children are valuable.
But hold on. We got security in schools, but do you mean armed security?
Oh,
that's a whole nother level.
No, it's not on another level. This is how you do it. Very simple.
Talk to me.
Right? You start a unit within the police department of your town or city, and the requirement is to have a degree in education, social work, or psychology. These are your best officers who actually want to work in a school, not to shoot people or to slam people, but they like kids. They want to help kids out. They're part of the school community. All right. That person becomes another concerned adult in all these children's lives that they grow to trust. All right. Because he cares about them. They care about him. And he has his Glock because he's a cop. All right. Very trust. That's a perfect situation. Of course, you're not going to pull the tactical sniper cop and throw him, or the hardened cop that's walking the beat on some hood and he's jumpy, ready to shoot somebody. You get people that are trained, that want to help and be part of a community to help children, but who also have a weapon. Because I'm going to tell you something. If you go to your banks downtown, there's somebody sitting there with a gun and you're not scared of him. And he sees you, your kids, and everybody else. Because why? Because that money's valuable to you. So if your children are valuable to you, which mine are, and I know yours are, and I believe everybody else's is, then hey, ask for the right thing. The Bible says you have not because you ask not, and when you ask wrong. All right. You don't want the police in the schools in Chicago, but then you got the BDs and GDs and everybody, Vice Lords, Stones, everybody shooting at each other. All right. Kids getting killed all the time, but you don't want armed security in your school. Yeah, you need armed security.
Let me say this. Here in Michigan, they intercepted a copycatter. The police did at a school. I can't remember the school. It was a school in Michigan. So shout out to them for doing their due diligence. Because and usually at this high school that my daughter goes to, whenever there's something like this, the police are on site the whole month. Usually every time I go up there in the morning, I see them there. So I don't know if they just posted there, but they're aware that there's copycats and they posted. The police department, not the police. They there. And so shout out to the police department here. I forget what city was in, but they intercepted somebody who was going to copycat.
And I'm glad that I'm sure most law enforcement is going to be on high alert in protecting our children. And I thank them for that. And again, I'm not saying people that you should let a tactical officer in your school, but you should let an officer, a community service officer, and yes, he should be armed. It's the bottom line. He is a trained person. All right. And at the end of the day, you hire people for that position. This should be a special duty that people get because they actually give a damn about the community, about the children of the community. And they have some education, like I said, in psychology, social worker education that makes them qualified to be able to be that extra concerned adult in their lives. But that being said, man, I'm going to let everybody go. Thank everyone for watching. I'm sorry for rambling. I went on some perspectives that I didn't get to really elaborate on because I wasn't expecting to go there. But be sure to buy my book. And Jonathan, thank you for agreeing to interview me, even though I told you on that. So we're looking at July, so we can finally get this out. I got copies to send to some people that have supported, you being one of them. All right. And again, thank you for being on, Jonathan. We'll talk again this weekend, and again, my prayers for everybody, and my prayers are for real, All right.
All right. Man.
Anything you want to shout out before we get out of here?
Oh no, just the police department here, and just in protecting the kids in school, being hard, being knowing what's going on. That's just gonna be copycats, and I don't know how they intercepted it. And I was like, now this is police work. Now, and I'm gonna say this: I'm gonna jab some people. Stuff go down. Who you calling? Stop this stuff with the police. You call them. Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Well, wherever you at, something go down, you was calling the
You
police.
calling the police.
All right. Well, y'all take it light. Be safe, everyone. Be mindful and be watching your surroundings wherever you be. All right. Peace.